Good morning and welcome to UCF's Leaders Up Close. It's a seminar series that is sponsored by Duke Energy, so we appreciate their support. As you know, it is part of the Engineering Leadership and Innovation Institute, and it's just to gather up and learn from leaders. We're very honored and privileged to have Jeannie Parsch with us today, and she's going to share her story with you. And she comes from Siemens, and she's done a lot of work in sales and marketing, help engineers learn how to go sell. And not just maybe products, but maybe ourselves. She's got a much bigger role today in helping shape partnerships across Siemens. And probably the biggest role she has today is sharing her story with you. So Jeannie, I thank you for joining us today. Please help me welcome Jeannie.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, good. Thank you, Carl. Okay, so my name is Jeannie Parsch, and I run strategic partnerships for the United States. I think I did my pre-work before I came here, and I read the handout for what Tim gave me that said, do not have tons of slides with a lot of wording, so I have pictures, and to engage with you guys, so hopefully I'll do that. And I typically start my speeches or conversations with colleges and universities by saying, I'm not a motivational speaker and I'm not a professor, so let's run our room as if we're in an executive boardroom and let's share in conversation. But Tim did ask me, in fact, today to be a little bit motivational, so we'll see what happens, so just bear with me. Again, logistically, if you guys do not have a handout, it's okay. I'm trying something new. I'm kind of going to walk you through some things, and then we'll have you debrief and review some content with each other. Pair up, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you'd like to do for 1 or 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back and keep going through this. So hopefully you guys pick up whether I say it's a nugget of advice or whether you just sort of inherently understand it's a nugget of advice. As I go through kind of my story, my career, you guys learn some things that I found very, very valuable. So let me kind of back up a second and talk about last night. I was invited to attend the UCF Hall of Fame event last night. I'm very honored to have been invited to sit there at dinner. And one of the speakers was the mayor of Winter Park. And I thought it was real poignant. And I was sitting next to one of my best girlfriends, and he said, wow, that's so true. And he said, someone can take away your health, or your health can be taken away. Your wealth can be taken away, but your education can never be taken away, right? And it's so true. So many things can be taken from us. Our life immediately, our money immediately, but nobody can walk into your home, your apartment, your condo, wherever you are, and say, I'm taking your diploma back from you. So I am absolutely honored to be here today because I love this. This is a passion of mine. I grew up in sales. I've been with my company for 20 years. I have a lot of stuff that I can share with people, and this is truly, truly my passion. I love people. I love developing people. I love going through this type of information. So at any given moment, I'll try to end right on time. I know you guys, some of you have to leave right at 12:20. So I'm not going to stop at the end and do a formal question and answer. I want you guys just to, while I'm going through these things, talk to me, ask me. Use me to your advantage. I'm here from a big corporate environment that I grew up in since I was 20. So it's only a few years. I get it, 20 to now. So, okay, do I have your agreement on that? Yes. Okay, perfect. So I've known Tim for over a year now, I think. I always say I'm a registered voter, and I'm your friend for the morning. So I want you guys to trust me, and I want you to close your eyes. No one's going to touch you, make you touch a weird object or anything weird. Everyone close your eyes. Eyes closed? Okay. You're a visionary. I want you to imagine yourself sitting in a big, gorgeous room, probably round tables, gorgeous china, silverware. There's hundreds of people in this room. You can hear people laughing and talking. You can hear the sound of the silverware moving around. All of your favorite people are in this room. Your family, your friends, your only favorite professors are in this room. And you're at a dinner in your honor. You're receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. And you will be called up on stage at the end of this dinner to receive your award. And the question that the audience wants to know is, what is your legacy? What legacy have you left? Does everyone have an image? Okay, open your eyes. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about leaving your legacy. And what does that mean to us? What does that look like to you guys? I feel like I stand here now and I think I know what I want my legacy to be, but it keeps evolving. And so I want to talk us through potentially a dinner. We're going to talk through a couple subjects here. Let me stand this way. We'll go through an appetizer discussion, main course, dessert, after dinner drinks, and then we'll go through a conclusion. And we'll talk about some key areas through my life that will take you through my career and my story to share with you guys, again, for some little nuggets of leadership advice that I can pass on to you guys. And so let me start with a quick story of the White House. So it was about 4 years ago, I was invited to the White House. And I was invited to speak about hiring veterans. So I ran a development program at Siemens, a very successful development program to bring college students into our company and train them for 14 months to be our future salespeople. And we got this wonderful idea from our Vice President of Corporate Affairs, who used to work for Michelle Obama and partnered with the Joining Forces campaign. And we said it would be smart to bring in veterans into the sales and marketing development program because we think it's a good fit for our sales field. And we did this, and we got a lot of recognition. And so there I was, invited to go into the White House. My brother, who happens to be in the Secret Service, met me in front of the White House and walked me in. My brother actually had a meeting that day in the West Wing. I went to the East Wing. And we actually didn't realize until maybe a week or a day or an hour or whatever it was afterwards, what a big deal that actually was. We kind of wanted to be humble, which is not like me at all, to be a little humble. But we didn't want to, we're both brothers and sister in the White House at the same time, but how cool it was to watch him, and I got tears in my eyes, go down the West Wing, and I went into the East Wing. And then I sat on Michelle Obama's couch in the pink room where every other First Lady has sat before. And so I did just what I asked you guys to do. I literally closed my eyes. They're probably like, what's she doing? So I closed my eyes, and I did. I took it all in. I can tell you, I remember the smell. I can tell you the flower garden outside. I remember the picture. I mean, everything's pink. And here I am sitting on the couch. And I did just that. And I asked myself that question. What legacy is it that I want to leave? And I continued to work through that kind of in my life. And there's a quote at the bottom of the screen here. It says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards from where you're standing. And so whatever you think of Steve Jobs, we know he was a bit of a tyrant. We know he was not charitable. We know he did some things that probably we wouldn't agree with. But we also know that he was a perfectionist, right? Everything that he did, he wanted his product to be the best. Nothing wrong with that. But very poignant, and why I use his quote is, one, I love Apple products. Two, is his commencement speech. By show of hands, who has read or have heard his commencement speech to Stanford in 2005? If you haven't, I suggest you guys Google it. No Steve Jobs or not, just the message that he gave, it really is wonderful. And one of the things I took from that was that he said the same thing. He could never connect his dots looking forward. It was only where he stood and looking back that he understood he could connect the dots. And that's truly how I feel about the opportunities I've been given and kind of where I am now standing here with all of you guys, which is so amazing. And I can look back, and it goes back into high school, of the way I operated with people and the way people operated with me, and the schools I chose, and the profession I chose, and the leadership opportunities, and the people I chose to surround myself with. And so these are choices. We all have them, we all make them, and they're very, very important. So let's go through the story of UCF and Japan. So here I grew up in Florida, native Floridian. Funny story, I was in a training program one year, and professor said, how many people from Florida? And a couple of us raised our hands, and he said, oh, it's like seeing a real-life manatee. We're like, can we, maybe a palm tree or a pretty sunshine or something, but not a manatee. But we went with it. So I'm a Floridian, and I said, okay, where am I going to go to school? Looked at 2 schools, which I don't suggest, because we want to create more options in life. My mother always told me, create as many options as you possibly can so that you're in the power of choosing, right? You have 20 schools that want you, and you get to pick. So I chose 2. I went to UCF, and I went to Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And I said, I don't want to be far from my family. I want to be close enough, but not as close, so my mother has to come in my house every day and make dinner and cakes and stuff. So I came to UCF. I was a business major. I chose business. And then I said, I want to differentiate myself. I want to do something different. Here I stand, blonde hair, blue eyes, business. I'm going to study Japanese. Perfect sense, right? Florida, Japanese, why not? Not Spanish, but Japanese. So I was here, I studied Japanese for 2 years, and then my parents were sending all of the kids off. They were sending us all to different countries. They said, if you want to go to Japan, find a school, apply, we'll send you. So I talked to a professor here, and we found this private university in Osaka, Japan, and I left. I was in a relationship for 5 years with my boyfriend at the time, and I said, no, I'm going. I'm out of here. I'm going to go live in Japan. And I will tell you guys, was, and still is, I always say my entrance to diversity, if that makes any sense. So here I stood, probably taller than most people in the country, blonder than most people in the country, and people chased me, and they touch you. I mean, they do. They pet you, and you're like, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but okay. They kind of pet you, and they follow you, and they record you, and they want to talk to you. They want to be your friend. They want to talk, and everybody wants to talk English, and I want to talk Japanese, and it was phenomenal. It was such a great experience that I tell people all the time, go, leave, go to another country and experience it. And I was so ingrained in the culture that when I came back to the United States, it actually took me time I was only there for 6 months. It took me so much time to get back into the American culture. I actually had to see if somebody said at 7-Eleven, $4.11, I had to see 4.11 in order for it to register. I had to understand again my culture and my life. And then I also remembered that feeling of what it's like to be in another culture and trying to learn another culture and then being the odd person out. And it really is such a good life experience to feel that every now and again. It's like when I broke my leg in high school. I broke my leg. I didn't have a major deformity. I didn't do anything that was to the eye, but no one looked at me. I'm in a wheelchair because I broke my leg. I'm still me, but I broke my leg. Nobody wants to make eye contact. So it's just, for me, that was putting yourself in these situations where you do feel that way. You're out of your comfort zone and realize that that's how some people feel all the time because of diversity. And I didn't know then, but I know now, because I've had 8 or 9 years now with leadership diversity roles at Siemens, that would be a poignant moment for me in my life and in my career. Okay, to you guys, debrief. Look at your sheets, and if you don't have a sheet, think about this. You're looking at table topic number 1. All right, and so for those of you who don't have it, just listen to me. How do you define diversity? Share with your group or your partner an introduction to diversity and what impact has it had on you personally or professionally. So for 1 minute, I want you guys to share, even if it's just what does diversity mean to you guys, diversity and inclusion. Turn to each other and for 1 minute, have that conversation. Okay, time's up. Good. Did everyone have a good discussion? Okay. Thank you for your participation. Let's go through the journey. So I was now working at Siemens. I actually left working for Siemens, had moved to Japan for those 6 months, and then I came back. It was at that time where I was running around one of our buildings at Siemens, and I had, who is now one of our senior HR directors, didn't know he would be then, and he came up to me and he said, you need to be in sales. I said, perfect, how do I do that? He said, come with me, I'll introduce you to the person. Introduced me to a gentleman who is now retired. His name was George Baker. Phenomenal. He was leading the sales and marketing at that time training program, which I would then take over years later. Didn't know then. And there were 16 people already part of this program, mostly engineers. And then little old me comes in, kind of fighting my way in. I want to be in the sales and marketing development program, and they said, why? And I did one of those, those deer in headlight looks, like, I lived in Japan. has nothing to do with being in the sales and marketing development program, but I said, I can do this. I'm smart, I want to learn about sales and marketing, I want to work in this company that's mostly male dominated, and I want to do something. And so they let me in. So I went through this development program for 14 months. I graduated from the program and I called on my first utility down in Jupiter, which is who? What is Siemens, what is our largest utility or largest customer in the United States? Who said FP&L? There you go. Florida Power Line, both of you. So I was calling an FPL for about 3.5, 4 years and doing everything that I thought was right. Working with my customer. I had left Orlando, which was my comfort zone. I'm now living down in South Florida in Jupiter. And one of the gentlemen in my office, there were 7. I was the only female. And I was going to sidebar with another, that's later. We'll do that when it's just the one-on-one. I'll tell you the note that I used to write the guys about using the bathroom. So, one of my friends in the office, again, 7 men, Jeannie, and my friend from Haiti comes to me and he says, Jeannie, you're missing something. I said, okay, do tell. Everything that you do, I think that you need to give back. I'd like to see you giving back this information. I said, okay, well then, what can I do? He said, I'd like you to start and train for the Guardian Ad Litem program, which is what you see up on the screen. So the Guardian Ad Litem program, which I would find out, is a program that supports neglected, abused, and abandoned children, and you're actually certified by the state of Florida to speak in court on the behalf of a child. So a lot of these deaths we've seen over the last several years, Michael Jackson, Anna Nicole Smith, all these people, they've all had their children, when they die, they have a guardian assigned to those children who's not paid. They're outside of the normal social worker kind of scene, and they're individuals who are trained to support the advocacy of the child. And so I had a child for a year, and I went to court and I spoke on behalf of the child with an ultimate understanding that I wanted to pair that child back with his mother. And so we put the mother on a plan to go through all of these kind of personal development courses and these things so that she could ultimately go back with her child. So I ran this Guardian Ad Litem program that I wouldn't know, again, back then, that where I stand now is now I'm involved in children's charities and the importance it is for us to understand, obviously, children, the needs of children, the development of children, and support them and enhance their development. So I come back to Orlando. I finish my 3.5 years in South Florida. I come back to Orlando to run our sales operations group, which is what I was doing. So it was at that time where my manager, who was the head of head of sales for the United States, nominated me for a mentoring program. I had no idea mentoring programs existed. I now talk about mentoring to college students, to my mentees, to people in and out of Siemens. Mentoring is key. Mentoring is if you could do one thing really in your career to make sure that you have a sounding board, you can bounce ideas off of somebody, you can have an external mentor, an internal mentor. It's a phenomenal way. We can talk more about it, offline. But yes.
How did you find a mentor?
I was nominated for the program. So at Siemens we have a nomination process. So we have an informal mentoring program, and my boss nominated me. And so I went into a program where they pair you up based on a DISC profile. Have you guys all heard of DISC profiles? It's a personality profile essentially. And so, but you can find a mentor. What I tell people all the time is you don't have to be nominated. It doesn't have to be formal. Find someone and you like their behavior. You genuinely like the person they are. You like what you see. They treat people well. They're communicative. They're involved in leadership and development. They're just genuinely something that you actually would want to emulate their behavior and go ask them. I've seen your behavior. I like the way you treat people. Can I mentor you? I promise you no one's going to say no. And even if you don't have the bandwidth, I have a number of them, and I've said, I don't have the bandwidth to do a full formal meet with you every month, but I will sit down with you, and I promise you that if there's a conflict resolution issue, or if you're doing a development of an employee that you need to talk to me about, we'll talk through it. And I read somewhere, and it was recently, I don't remember where it was, or I read it somewhere, that someone said, don't ever shut down a conversation with somebody else. We have to be smart about it because we only have so many hours in the day, right? I'm surprised that you engineers have not figured out how to create more hours in the day. But we still have the same, we still have 24, and we still have more and more and more and more things that we need to do. So, so my mentor, back to my pairing, so my mentor, here I am, me, and my disc profile paired me with this woman, you guys, who, and I know I'm being recorded, and this eventually is going to go on YouTube. So she was phenomenal, but she was like, you know, 6'3" and British, and she came in, and I was like, what in my disc profile matched me with her? And I was, for probably the first time, very, very intimidated by this woman, which I don't ever feel intimidated because I feel like you can have a conversation with anybody. And I kind of went, I mean, she was part of the London Brigade and the this and the that, and she did all these amazing things. And to this day, she actually just left. She said, I don't have time to work. She just went on a cruise. She literally just left. I'm not kidding you. I'm like, you don't have time to, what? You're my mentor. She left on a cruise on February 3rd on Monday, and she's gone for 8 months. She's yeah. But up until then, she was my sounding board. I have more mentors since then. I went through the top talent program, and I have an external coach, and I have all these things. But she's the one person I go back to, and we talk about everything. We just talk. And you know what she told me when we were paired together? She said, this is a two-way street. I want to mentor you. You're going to mentor me. And boy, it's the truth. It was awesome. So she then nominated me to lead our women's resource group. She said, I think you have been operating in a male-dominated business for far too long that you should now be able to give that advice back to women at Siemens. And so I started that whole realm of diversity from one person, from Sarah Bynum, who nominated me to lead our women's resource group, which is that picture up there on the right. So I led the women's resource group. Gosh, time is going fast, Tim. I led the women's resource group, and there are so many things that you learn from dealing with volunteers. Nobody's paid to lead these diversity groups at Energy. They're all volunteers. We had 400 members, and I did that for about 2.5, 3 years. Okay, so we fast forward. 2008 comes along, and I'm now running sales operations for the United States, working for the president of sales. And he says to me at a meeting one day, would you like to run the sales and marketing development program? So listen to this. When your manager asks you if you'd like to run something or do something, the first answer is not no, right? Okay. Even if you don't have time to do this, the answer is, boss, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to think about this, and I'll get back to you. And then your next answer is, yes, I'd love to. So I said to him the next day, yes, I would love to. And this is just maybe my second most rewarding experience in diversity and development and involvement with students that I look back, and what you see up on the screen, it's a timeline of the development program since I reinstated it in 2008 to when I no longer was leading this development program. We brought in 33 students from colleges and universities across the country. I was single-handedly involved with their development and then placing them out into our organization. And I say we're infiltrating the system. I tell them this all the time. I'm like, you guys are infiltrating, because they're in marketing, they're in sales, they're in oil and gas. I've got one student or graduate who went into wind. He was a project manager, and now he's in Shanghai. I've got another individual, she just started a women's group in California. Example after example of the pride I feel when I look at these students for, coming into an organization, transitioning from a collegiate environment into the corporate environment and private sector. It is difficult, you guys, but it's so doable, and it's such a great learning experience, and I've watched these people do this. And so I like to highlight that as part of my journey, because I've got these 33 individuals. They called me Mama Hen and all these, all these things. And I, for so long I'll say my kids. And it's now to the point where people go, Jeannie, we didn't know you had children. So no, I've got 33 of them. Yes, I have lots of children and 2 dogs. So it is, it's just an exciting thing to do. Okay, next discussion point, 1 minute. You guys look down at table topic number 2, and I want you guys to share with each other and think about what you've learned from a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, what are you going to do to ensure you have one by year end? Think about it. And then how will you pay it forward? So just talk about mentoring, if you have one, if you don't, and then how you will probably get one by the end of the year. 1 minute. Believe it or not, that was 1 minute. Do you all have a plan in place for this year to get a mentor? We have to keep going, but that was 1 minute. So listen, if you didn't have the time to say this is what I'm going to do, really think about it. I would encourage you guys to think about it, to share this with each other and think about how you're going to get a mentor going forward. It's very important. Let's go through the journey. Now we're on dessert. We finished our main meal. You guys are getting ready to think about what your legacy is. And what I have up on the screen here is some information on our Siemens Energy Diversity Council. So I lead the Women's Resource Group, and then I was asked to lead our Diversity Council for the United States. I was asked to do this with a gentleman by the name of Sujith Bhatia, who I will suggest that you meet at some point in time. He is absolutely phenomenal. So I didn't know Sujith before this happened, and now to this day, he is a dear friend of mine. And when we met, I said, I'm only doing this if you do it. He said, I'm only doing it if you do it. So we agreed, we shook hands, we said, let's do this. We ran the council for 2 years, and it was phenomenal. We took Siemens Energy Diversity Council from a ranking of nothing back in the, whatever it was, maybe 6 years ago, 4 years ago, I'm not sure. We took us from a ranking of 0 of the Association of Diversity Councils in the United States to 14, and then the second year of our tenure, we took us to 7 as ranking in the Diversity Association of Diversity Councils. So we had our 10-year diversity celebration. We invited Mayor Dyer to Orlando, at which point we let he and our CEO of Energy, Randy Zorn, drive our little electric vehicle that's parked out in front of Siemens from one building to the next. And he came into Orlando, and Sujith and I stood with him on stage, and we rang a bell, and we declared Siemens Day of Diversity, which was so incredible. And he talked about how he supported diversity and everything that we were doing at Siemens Energy. And so to this day, another funny story, Sujith and I were invited to go to Germany and tell our story of diversity and how well diversity impacts overall business anywhere. It impacts everything. And we were in a room with all top executives. All the top executives were invited to Germany, and they broke everyone up into 4 categories, so into 4 quadrants. So imagine you guys are one instrument, you guys are another, you're another instrument, and back there you're another instrument. And they had this jazz band playing. And so then they said, okay, your noise is chicka, 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 and yours is boom, kaboom, and yours is whatever. I don't remember what they all were. I just know I was boom, kaboom. And so you had to get up, and they asked you, now when the music starts, everyone get up and do your instrument noise and walk around and look at each other in the eye. I mean, we had like senior executives going, chicka, 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 boom, and it was awesome. So I'll tell you what, I haven't done that since. I would love to do this as an event or something. But to this day, any success that Sujith and I have outside of diversity or just in our careers or personal life, I get a little text message from him, and it says, boom, kaboom. And that's our congratulatory boom, kaboom. So that's my experience with diversity. I led a diversity council with Sujith. I created a friendship, a dynamic I didn't know that I would have. You know, I'm standing on stage with the mayor of Orlando, and just working in this realm of diversity, I'm starting to realize now, looking where I am, that this is becoming a theme in my life, right? I started with Guardian Ad Litem, I'm running the Women's Resource Group, and I'm running the council. And we sit down and talk about what diversity means to us. I actually crafted this with our CEO and sat down with him and said, let's talk about what we call our message triangle. So this is a message triangle, and often in companies, at least at Siemens, we talk about this from a presentation and messaging skills standpoint. This is something good to have if you guys are presenting anything. Even if you're just trying to get your thoughts around what you want to tell somebody, it's great. Your key message is in the middle. So for us, diversity is a business imperative, and then what are your 3 key points that you're gonna hit on? So I actually have this template that I use, but this was the message of diversity that we use for the Diversity Council. And you see in the middle, it's a diversity imperative for the competition of global talent. So what I didn't know then, which I do know now, is that I would then be in that realm of looking at talent. So remember when Tim introduced me, I went from my life and career in sales, running sales operations, and now I'm in corporate HR. And I run our strategic partnerships for Siemens across sectors and all of our target colleges and universities. So I'm now in that realm. So I didn't know that. So again, connecting the dots. And here I am. So what we're not going to do, for sake of time, is, actually no, I have one more. I have one more for you. And then we'll go through our next table topic. So Sujith and I led the Diversity Council, and our Chief Diversity Officer, Denise Cronow, sat down with me and basically announced that I was nominated to participate in a program that's called Moment That Fits. It's to fast track international talent, which I didn't know until I showed up in Singapore, that it was actually to fast track international talent. I thought it was just a good opportunity for me to go and meet with the CEO of healthcare for what we call the ASEAN cluster. She was responsible for business in 6 or 7 different countries for healthcare. And so I show up and it's a fast track for international talent. And so I thought they were sending me to Singapore, which would have been okay. So I spent 2 weeks in Singapore and in India, again, tying back my diversity experience. Now I'm in all these other cultures. And then my business exposure. So I was sitting with a woman, again, running a business unit outside of my normal business sector of energy that I'm used to, and talking to me about healthcare in these other countries. And talk about a small world. So I'm in a meeting in Mumbai, India, and 80% men, and we're talking about Orlando and where I'm from, and would you believe that a guy walks in and he says, I've been to Orlando, and I said, really? He had a home in Stony Brook. My friend is a property manager in Stony Brook, and I said, do you know Michelle Paul? He says, I do, in Mumbai, India. I mean, what a small world, right? So we talk about this all the time, how small the world is, and it really is a small world. So that's my diversity up to that point. What you guys have in front of you, and so I won't ask you to do this now for sake of time, but you guys have a diversity council commitment, or diversity commitment, what are we calling it? Diversity champion commitment. You guys can keep that. And what I will ask you to do is just read that. We came up with this. If you don't have one, I have more, and if I don't have enough, I'll get you guys all this information. But a few years ago, we actually developed some key bullets of what we think a diversity champion means. What does that entail? And people signed this diversity champion commitment. You can go online and see this now of how many people. So what I want you guys to do is read that and just think about the next table topic discussion over your dessert was to read either as a group or individually. In our growing economy, how will you manage the inclusion of cultures? And as a student, how will you encourage the message of diversity and inclusion? So that will be something maybe that we can follow up with afterwards, is that. So I took a year off. I was running sales operations. My boss gave me more people to manage, and he gave me more business responsibility, and he said, okay, maybe you don't need a leadership position for the next year. I said, fine. I could only sit still for so long. And then I said, well, I would like to do more diversity work, and I would like more leadership opportunities. So I was asked to lead our women's group for the United States. So I'm now co-chairing our Women in Networking at Siemens. We've got approximately 1,500 people. Myself and a director in industry, she and I co-chair this group that we call Women in Networking at Siemens. So last June, we held our 5th annual women's event in Orlando. We had 300 women. We invited business leaders from across our sectors. We invited participants from across the sectors. We had our Chief Diversity Officer do a one-day boot camp with us, and it was a phenomenal, phenomenal turnout. We themed the event +1. And the idea of +1 was to reach over and down and up and across the organization to bring somebody else in, right? This is not about us. This is not about you and you and you. It's about all of you. It's about other people and bringing more and more people into this game. And so we titled it +1. And we're actually going to use the same theme for next event. And we're going to continue on the theme of +1 and talk about what +1 meant and what opportunities did we find in business? You know, what impact did we have to the business by talking about +1? So we're going to do that in June. And I kicked off the event with talking about the practice of positivity. And I wrote a speech that I didn't tell anyone about, and it was all about practice of positivity in these 3 areas. I talked about gentleness, forbearance, and faithfulness in terms of faithfulness to your company. So gentleness, Maria Shriver, who we all know, she actually gave a commencement speech herself, and she called it the power of the pause. and she encouraged students to slow down, to think about the way we talk to each other, to think about the way we treat each other, and to provide more respect, to give each other more respect and to be gentle. And I thought that was such a good message to drive home. And so we talked about that. We talked about forbearance. We talked about positive framing. And I researched some things that shows that positive framing, and we talked about this, and this was a big thing in the 90s, was positivity. But the practice of positivity is more than just a nice to have. It's a good thing to have. And there's scientific research shows that it actually makes you happier. It creates longevity for your life. I think we studied people who had died and who had, scientists who had researched this, and their organs were healthier because they were talking about the practice of positivity. All kinds of really cool research actually behind why this is beneficial for you. And then faithfulness. We talked about faithfulness to a business, faithfulness to each other, and just genuinely being a good person and practicing this in the business. So again, I won't go into those details, but those are the key areas that we hit on. And it was a perfect segue for me personally. Again, and I told Tim this morning, I said, for no other reason, speaking to you guys today, I've got a really challenging meeting at 3 o'clock today. And for no other reason, this message here that I'm giving you guys helps my framing. So I kind of look at that in my life as I talked about the practice of positivity back in June, and then now I've taken on a completely new role. After 16 years of being in one company, essentially, I've moved functional areas, right, from sales to HR. I have moved from sector to corp, which is a big deal in a big corporation, and I have now a virtual environment. So all of these things are things that are good. I don't regret the decision. It's different. I tell people all the time, different doesn't mean bad, different doesn't mean good. It's different. It just provides us with more perspective, and it increases our awareness. So I've now applied some of my own thoughts to the audience of practicing positivity. And in this new role, when it's easy to become overwhelmed and it's easy to become frustrated, to practice positivity. And I've learned that now. I'm responsible for, and that's a picture of all of our colleges and universities across the United States, and I'm now running what we call our strategic partnerships. So I'm using that. Oh, wait, nope, hold on. Okay, so you guys have your last sheet here, which I will leave with, which is not up here. But your last sheet, we're recapping the conclusion, right? And this is what I want everyone to walk away with, and I want you guys to ask yourself, right? We started with, what is your legacy? So the last table topic discussion is the conclusion. You are the future of America. How will you make an impact, and what will you leave as your legacy? And the other tidbit of what I like to talk about is, remember, your attitude goes a long way. There's a really wonderful quote that I don't know off the top of my head, but Charles Swindoll provided it, and I have it on my desk. And I will tell you what, that is so true, you guys. Your attitude does go a long way. And I reference here another quote. It's not up here, it's in your sheet here, and I'll read it to you. Steve Jobs, again, his commencement ceremony. And I quote, "Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is just secondary." And then I mention on here, Steve Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2004, and he lived 7 years creating his legacy, creating a sustainable organization and creating a legacy. So whether it's Steve Jobs or whether it's other people that we emulate as leaders, as executives, as whoever they are, as heroes and mentors in our company or in our life, in our career, think about that. What is their legacy, and how do you guys want to go forward and leave your legacy? So I'll just close with this. If there are 3 things that you are going to take away from all of that stuff I told you, you could say, practice positivity, remain people-oriented, and stay engaged. Be a connector. I talked at my conference last year, Siemens is a business. It's a business and business to do business, right? At the end of the day, if we make no money, we're not in business. But businesses wouldn't exist without people. And we need to treat each other the right way. We need to encourage each other. We need to mentor each other. We need to develop each other for the future of us and for your legacy.
Jeannie, thank you for sharing. So we all know the routine a little bit, but before I get to ask the first question, because I get to do that, there was more than 3 things.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right, so I'm going to share my notes with you all, if you don't mind, right? So, legacy is about a choice. You got to differentiate yourself. That creates choices you have in your life. You need to pick mentors, because one idea, one person, one relationship creates a whole bunch of things,
Right.
lifelong things. When a boss, this is really important, when a boss gives you an opportunity, you say, thank you, let me think about it,
And yes.
and yes. Get involved in leadership development programs. You're all going to have an opportunity when you go interview. Ask that question. What leadership development program can I get in? Celebrate wins. Be clear on messages. Pick the right collaborators, positivity. And attitude goes a long way. And she said something early on. And maybe this is your legacy. So I get to ask 2 questions. Love people. Love developing people. Just slow down and take it all in.
That's right.
That's it, right? So, what's your legacy?
I knew that was going to be asked. So let me say that it's still developing every day. But my goal in life, and being 36, I'm not even there yet, right? I don't think, I have a lot of experiences, but I don't think that I'm even there yet. But it's not about me. What I want and my ultimate goal, when I think of everything that I do at Siemens or outside of Siemens, it's to give back. Right now it's women in leadership, but it's for everybody. You know, I'd eventually like to create my own, you know, whether it's like webinars or podcasts we talked about, to be able to give some of that back. And primarily, and this is the truth, and it sounds girly and dramatic and emotional, but it is really, my life is about helping other people not feel alone, not feel you know, unworthy, not feel afraid, to not feel unloved, to not feel, I've had all of those feelings. I have felt all of those. And I truthfully do not want, that comes with compassion, right? I don't want people to feel that way. We're going to, everyone's going to have those feelings. But if you can do one thing to help people not feel that way, to feel included and to feel respected and to feel loved and to not feel that, loneliness, that is really, that I think that's my legacy, is to tie in people and to bring people together enough and to continue creating this positive, really this positive environment without sounding hokey and, you know, unrealistic. Truthfully, that's what it is.
So I've had the opportunity to meet with Jeannie numerous times over the last year and a half and get to know her a little bit. But I walk out each time with those meetings, I go to my car and I'm writing in my notebook, oh, I got to go do this, I got to, because she says it, but she does it. And there's a real like, wow, that's a cool idea. And yeah, what I was thinking about, I just get a little more energy. So I know you live it. And I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Absolutely.
And sharing it with these folks. So that's a good legacy.
Oh, good. Thank you. It was a privilege. You guys have any questions? Any questions? Yes.
How do you go about asking someone to be a mentor?
So one of my mentors and friends and one of our vice presidents of sales said to me once, Jeannie, you don't always have to say it the right way, just say it. Right? Often we think about, am I using the right words? Am I going to sound smart? Am I going to sound, just say it. So I said earlier, if you see somebody, you like the way they treat other people, you like the way they do business, or they have a career path or something that you like or that you can relate to, simply ask them. You know, I'm thinking, I don't know how to ask this the right way, so forgive me, but would you mind mentoring me? And then you guys, you know, we can define that how it is. I don't maybe need to sit down with you every month, but can you be there? Go for the ask. Can you be there every other month? If I have a situation, I'll let you know what it is, and can you talk through it with me for 30 minutes? I promise you're not going to say no. Well, I hope not. Yes?
Where did it all start? Like you said, you worked for Siemens for 20 years. Where did you start?
When I started at Siemens, I started as a co-op student while I was here. So it was proximity, really. I mean, you couldn't have paid me enough money to tell me that I would be standing here doing what, I mean, I had 5 of my girlfriends who were working at, or who are here at UCF co-op students across the street. And so I said, well, this is perfect. It's right across the street. I'll work 20 hours a week. And I started as a co-op student purchasing. And that's when then the HR manager came to me and said, you should be in sales. And a funny story with him is that years later, I ran into him at a sales meeting and I said, George, his name is George Mendenhall. I said, George, I use you in my conversations. And he goes, I use you in my conversations. And so here we're both telling each other that, you know, he was probably like, there was this young girl who I told to be in sales and she is. So, but that's how I started. I was in purchasing as a co-op student.
Jeannie, you run women's groups at Siemens, and so some of our young women will be joining that workforce. Any unique challenges or things they maybe need to be aware of that you could speak to that I can't?
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yes, a number of them. But I will tell you at the end of the day, you guys, male or female, is to be you and to be authentic. And we hear about this all the time, but it is the truth to be authentic. I will tell you, though, that it is, and you hear this, you hear executive women say, well, you know, I don't operate any differently. I mean, I kind of agree, but I don't. We are different. And you know, I tell people all the time, if I were in Germany and I wore a suit, I would be an admin. Versus here in America, we wear suits because we're professional, and you know, you want to exude executive presence. But in Germany, that does mean. So there are differences. It's just because it's the way it is. So we have to understand that, value that. Women are different than men. Men are different than women. It's okay. Talk about it. In terms of challenges, I think, you know, and it's funny, I was in Chicago right before Christmas, and I was doing a presentation messaging course, and there was this coach who goes around the world. I had 10 minutes with him for free. And I asked him the one question. I said, you know, I think we've talked about women in business for so long, we're giving them techniques and skills and all these things to, like, you know, Sheryl Sandberg, have a seat at the table and lean in and all these things. I said, I think we need to go back to the basics, and I think we need to establish some confidence again, because I feel like sometimes we don't feel as confident when you're sitting in a room, and this might not apply to everybody, but if you're in a room of 12 men and you're a woman, sometimes it's a little intimidating. And you go, well, I've got the best idea, you know? And so he said, you're right. And he said that he runs a school in Africa, and he's actually seen this, where all the girls, they don't introduce the boys until a certain amount of weeks, because all the girls, when there are no boys in the room, they're like, and they have all these ideas. They introduce the boys, and they kind of are a little bit quieter. So I think it really comes back to, and I asked him, I said, well, then how do you do that? He said, the one question I would ask women is, if you don't do it for yourself, who will you do it for? Because we're caretakers, we're nurturers, right? You do it for your mom, you do it for your kid, you do it for your aunt, your neighbor, your professor, whoever it is, but you'll do it for someone. So if you feel that lack of confidence, so that could be a challenge. It's just a little bit of, it's okay, speak your mind. You guys know, you've all been there. You're in a room and you're like, I want to say it, and then the other person says it, you're like, I was thinking that, and it was like the best idea that happened in the meeting, and you had it there. So just, you know, have a seat at the table and be confident to say it. Yes?
What is the single most important characteristic that you have that makes you such a good developer and makes people want to listen to you and believe you so much?
I think I always use the word, I have a, what's the word that I use? It's my perspective on life. It's like an abnormal perspective on life. I truthfully think that, you know, we say everything happens for a reason. I really do believe it. I do not believe in mistakes. I believe that you learn from everything that you've done, and all of that is a culmination of who you are. So I think I can offer that to people is, I have standards for people. I have very high expectations, but I will not judge you to the point where we can't figure something out. And it's okay. It'll be worked out. I mean, my mother was a very high standard woman. You know, you knew if you disappointed her, you didn't want to disappoint mom. Dad was a Lutheran minister, but Dad was, it's okay. I knew I could come home with my whole body tattooed, and Dad would say, it's okay, we'll figure it out. So I think I like took both of those together, you know, and I've got like, you know, perspective and expectations, and you need to do a good job, but it's going to be okay. What's the worst thing that can happen? Right? My parents have said this to me, what's the worst? You get fired. Okay, I mean, go get another job. So I mean, really, if you think about that, so I think I can offer to people an abnormal amount of perspective in life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You had a question?
What do you think has helped you develop your leadership like accessible to all of us to do?
So I think tactically, one thing that I like to talk a lot about executive presence and these types of things. You can take courses and classes and you can learn the message triangle to be able to articulate a message to people. I think that's an easy win that you can do, and you can Google things and you can take courses that will help you articulate your message.
Are there like any books you would recommend?
Let me think about that and I'll let Tim know. There is a book that I was given and I haven't started reading it yet, but it's a book called Multipliers. I think it's Liz Wiseman, and she's got a podcast as well, but this book is on multipliers and it sounds really cool. It's not on presentation and messaging, but it's basically the premise is that it's multipliers and diminishers. And we all want to be multipliers, right? I mean, who wants to go out and say, like, I want to be a diminisher, I want to take away from people. But we are accidental diminishers. So there are 6 of them. And one is the nurturer, which I do. You know, I'll say, okay, I've got a great project for you. Take it and come back to me in 2 weeks and let's talk about kind of your strategy. And then, you know, a week isn't it, oh, well, I'll just call that person. No, I gave you the project, you need to lead it. So instead of nurturing I could be an accidental diminisher, because what am I doing to her? Well, I just gave it to her, now maybe I think she can't do it because I'm saying I'll do it for you when I'm not intending to. I'm just trying to step in to help. So there's a list of accidental diminishers that you can be. But it sounds like it's going to be a good book, but I'll think about the actual presentation and messaging.
But I mean more like leadership role, not so much as presenting.
Yeah. Oh, a number of things. I would say get out and lead things like, you know, diversity and inclusion was my avenue for my leadership. Does that make sense? So it just happened to be that I led the Women's Resource Group and then the Diversity Council and now the Women's Group for the United States. But I was involved in leadership positions. So I would say to lead student organizations, to get out and to lead those types of things. Yeah, it helps you with networking. I always say intentional networking. You know, people get overly crazy and excited about networking, but you could network till you're blue in the face. So be intentional about it.
One
You're
last
welcome.
time, Jeannie, thank you very much.
You're welcome.